The Battle of Britain is about to begin.
We got tanks up there. Let's follow a radio on these, right? I'm doing it out right on the target right now. I've got a submarine right in front of me. I'm going after it. Right there, got him.
Welcome to the Elite Pursuit Podcast. We've been all over the United States these last few weeks, so we figured we might actually record and talk about what we've done, which I don't think was a great contribution to society, but we did a lot over the last few weeks. But probably the biggest jet setter of the group is none other than our master of the decks, wiggy. Oh wait, no, not those kind of decks. Stream decks. Steve Toth. Steve, how you doing?
Good. What's up, man? I don't know. I'm at back home, but I think my liver might still be in Oklahoma.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you left it by the parking lot when I turned out of the hotel there. So either as a commentary on my driving or how much alcohol you had the night prior. I don't know which. I'm going to blame it on the alcohol, not my driving. We are also joined by that long lost member of the Elite Pursuit Podcast, none other than Casey. Casey, how you doing tonight?
Good, guys. It's good to be back.
Yeah,
Didn't get to travel, but it's good to be here.
You stood us up. You know, we're literally within a couple hours of you, and you didn't even come by and say hi.
Oh, next time.
Blamed your air conditioner.
Yes.
Drama of, I had to go shoot my air conditioner so I don't have to go to TLC. Don't worry, you're on report, mister. We know this about you.
Go listen to him, John.
John, he didn't want to come up there anyway. Yeah, so thanks, because that meant that Steve and I had to go to dinner with the Raiders, which is always an experience in and of itself, and we'll talk about that later. But let's recap kind of where we've been and what we've done since the last episode that we dropped on y'all like a ton of bricks or like a big steaming turd. Either one. But episode 109, talking about the Wing Commander release, the not very well proofread Wing Commander release. That's all right. We keep finding little glitches in there. No big deal. Nothing that a good errata can't solve. Right, Steve? It's not embarrassing. No, not at all.
No, they're doing good. I mean, there's a lot of people playing it, right? There's a lot of people
the good thing.
reading
So
it,
there's
playing
people
it,
playing the
buying
scenarios,
it.
playing the campaign system. Casey, you still don't have a copy, do you? Casey fell off the edge of the earth.
I'm sorry, I broke my mic. No, I still don't. It's still like in order. It's waiting. It's coming.
That's all right. That's all right. We would send you a digital copy if Warlord had given us a. Yeah, they didn't do that. I can't even buy a digital copy. I mean, who does that these days?
It's funny you say it, though. I think it's supposed to be here this week. So
okay, well, good. Then I won't feel so bad for not sending you my copy after I summarily burned it after they messed up my scenario. At least they spelled my name right, Gloover. But where have we been? So we did TLC right after episode 109. Steve and I rolled out there, and then Steve, from there, you rolled back to Historicon the next weekend. And Casey, you still did nothing, right?
no,
right?
just work.
Gaming. Oh,
Just work.
such a sad state of affairs. Poor Casey. We all love Casey. Moment of silence for Casey's hobby life. Yes, it's dead.
Hey, I'm going
At
to
least
say
the
his
air conditioning's
meme game was on point while we were at TLC, though.
Yes, it was. And don't worry, listeners, audience, you won't see any of those memes that were generated. They are so inappropriate that even I won't share them, which means they're really inappropriate.
I got a lot of research done, at least. You know, that's the important part. Lots of reading done.
That's good. At least you got some reading done in the 96-degree heat, whatever, 110-degree. Ugh. No thanks. All right. So we're going to skip over all the other BS we normally talk about. What's coming out, what is on the horizon, because we've already talked a lot about the Italians. Some more aircraft are coming out. We've talked about some of the drama with the Warlord casts themselves. But let's talk about hobby events. So Twisted Lords. Yeah. Went up there for Blood-Red Skies tournament. Yeah, that was another, not a plus. And we also did a furball, and then we played some Snapship Tactics, which was kind of an interesting game we'll talk about here in a bit. The streams are going to go up on YouTube, hopefully sometime after this episode. So if you missed us live and you didn't catch it on Twitch, then you'll be able to see those things and see all of us basking in our glory there in the interwebs, streaming everything. But let's talk about the furball. So furball was kind of fun. What do you think, Steve, with the group we had there and the aircraft and all of the setup for it?
The furball was super fun. You did forget the first event, which was the John Russell plywood 100-yard dash. But
Well, I was trying to not reveal that you were his indentured servant. So full disclosure, here's my lesson learned from a few TLCs, and I'm sure Casey will back me up on this. It is cheaper for both your medical bills and your pride to get an Uber or a rental car at the airport rather than to let John Russell pick you up. So we're going to pick on John because we love him. But literally that it opens up the door where, oh yeah, wait a minute, I got to run by storage. Oh wait, I got to go do this. And you got the worst of it. I've never had that level of John Russell unloading. It's been, hey, help me with some boxes out of the truck, help me with some terrain boards. You got how many sheets of plywood again?
no, it was worth it. It was a great game. It was fun, but we couldn't let that go without just making a little bit of fun of it, right?
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
100% worth it.
So it was quite a few sheets of plywood that you had to unload, which we'll talk about the game that was for here in a second. But besides the setup, the first event, the furball, had a handful of players. It was fairly good. I mean, we got some people in there to try the airplanes and to try some of the different traits, and it was a much smaller furball. It wasn't the 12-foot long table that we had there at Adepticon. So we did it on a regular 4x4 table. Had the streaming gear all there, so it was a little cramped. But I thought it was still a good time to get people around the table, be social, and play a little Blood Red Skies.
Oh, for sure. I thought it was really good. I think what we really do great with the furball is kind of randomizing those traits. So even though
Yeah.
you might be using a plane and you might get a trait that isn't with that plane, I think it's really cool to get people experience with the different traits. So you just learn how those mechanic works. Plus, I think it's a really good way of kind of like speed teaching the game. Like, oh, here's this, here's this, here's this. And it just gives people a lot of reps really quickly. So yeah, I think the furball is here to stay.
I think
Yeah.
furballs are such a great idea too for like the first night too. As people are arriving, you don't have to get like too crazy involved, and it's almost like a perfect icebreaker.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was good because there were people that were at the furball that kept coming back and checking back and talking through things. So that worked out well. One thing we did different, and Steve alluded to it, was instead of having everyone play a traited airplane and then giving out doctrine cards or theater cards or whatever when they flew over the power-ups, we had no one play with traits, and then we would give them traits when they hit a power-up. So you might gain a robust card or you gain a rapid roll. So that way you really got a quick swap through all of the different cards. Even if they were cards that didn't go with your airplane, you got to see what Deep Pockets did, what Great Climb did, all those kind of things. And I think that probably is better for an intro player to really get a fire hose, kind of like some speed dating a little bit with Blood Red Skies, as we've talked about before. We've even suggested doing individual tables where you play two aircraft versus two aircraft, 1v1 with another player. And when you lose, that's fine. You just go to the other table and meet someone new and play Blood Red Skies that way. But it's a great intro. So I think it's a lot of fun, and we're definitely going to keep doing that for the events we're at. So events we're at being the Bigfoot Stomper, because the schedules are getting busy. Okay. Steve, anything else you saw in the furball that you thought was interesting or worth bringing out?
Just that, like you said, just to repeat, it's great if you see us at an event, you're not sure you want to play Blood Red Skies, you're not sure if you want to lock yourself down to an event, because I'm really that kind of guy. When I go to conventions, I really don't sign up for a lot of events because I just kind of want to kind of wander around and see what kind of entices me to come in. I think it's a great one to get into just because it happens so quick, it goes fast, it's pretty laid back, pretty chilled. Yeah, it's just a fun time.
Yeah, absolutely. So then we did a little bit of roaming ourselves, saw the other stuff that was getting set up in the other events. Lots of vendors in there. There's a lot of really cool stuff. There were some neat 3D printed miniatures. There was obviously a lot of standard Warlord fare and other miniature gaming companies there. There are people playing Gettysburg again for the 400th time. I think they had Gettysburg for the entire set of days. So they had that. We'll talk about our favorite pirate game here in a second. But there were a lot of offerings there. So if you think that Twisted Lords is just Warlord games or just Warlord derived things. It's not. So they did have a big bolt action tournament, but they also had people playing demos for Flames of War, Team Yankee, and playing full on other game systems.
Big Wings of Glory game.
Yeah,
right?
there was Wings of Glory. There was another one, and I'm trying to remember the name of it. Shoot, I can't remember. It was another World War I game that was out there that used similar scale miniatures, the 1/200 scale miniatures. So that was pretty fun. It looked like it was a really good sized large game. And of course, the funny thing for us was we kind of got a great setup in our own room, but as a result, we were kind of sidelined. So I think lesson learned for us is we're attention hounds. We're obnoxious people. We want to be in the center of the big room, and we were not. So we weren't the focus of attention, but we had a great setup there. So thanks to John and the TLC group, we had plenty of room to set stuff up, plenty of room to set up the games we did not play, and plenty of room for the tournament tables we did not need. Yeah. So about that tournament. Once again, thanks to Mike Lewis, bro, hooking us up. So Mike was our one and only turnout for the tournament. Obviously, disappointing for us who wanted to run a tournament, but it was a great opportunity for us to play, and I got to play Mike and walk through some of the tournament setups and try some other things and kind of do a live stream experiment with a couple scenarios. What thoughts did you have on that, Steve? I mean, obviously we totally changed the format.
It wasn't a tournament, obviously, right?
No,
but it was cool. It gave us time to sort of test some stuff that we've kind of talked about testing in I would say a semi-realistic environment, right? So that was kind of cool to get some realistic play testing in. And I don't know, it was cool to kind of play the flip-flop scenario thing with you and Mike. Right. It was cool to kind of see that. Certainly we got a ton of practice using the streaming setup. And I think if you watch that at Adepticon, our stream, you're going to see, if you didn't catch the live stream, but when you put on YouTube, I think we really got that. I mean, I think we've really got that dialed in moving forward for when we get to our big show that's Adepticon. So yeah, I mean, the tournament didn't go off as we expected, but I don't know, it was a good time. It was fun. I got to actually play a little bit. You got to play a little bit. That doesn't always happen. So yeah, I mean, it was a good time.
Yeah, absolutely. Casey, did you get to watch the stream at all, or were you too busy sweltering in the heat?
I was sweltering in the heat, but I did get to watch a little bit. And like I said, I mean, the stream looked good.
Yeah, I think we learned a lot.
It was the other one. The volume was just a little low.
Yeah, so we had a few Amazon headset problems, as we'll call it. But technical glitches like that aside, I think we've kind of worked out a lot of the other bugs for what we want to do. The 3 games with Mike were fun. I laughed because we started off and we played scenario 2, so we played just a straight up game for scenario 2. And I used a list I'd put together in 5 minutes previously that I keep falling back on. It's so funny, and I'll talk about that here for a second. So I think I first used this list playing you, Steve, in our grudge match. I used a derivative of it. So the first time I used it, it was 2 aces and hurricanes, and then I think it was 3 other airplanes is how I used it. It was a 4 and 2 3s or something. So it was a couple aces and some other stuff, and they had different ace traits. They were trying to be kind of crazy. Then I think I used it the next NashCon. I think I used it when I played Don and Rhonda and a couple other people. And in that one, I'd kind of refined it to just being aggressive. I don't think it was 3 aces yet in that list. And I got to this one yeah, whatever. Okay, let's just start from the same starting point and wrote a 3 ace list, which I think actually was fine in the first game. And I just barely lost that first game. It was a hard fought run with Mike, it was actually a really, really fun, challenging scenario too. But then it showed the holes in the list when we put it into bounced into scenario 3. I had to think of that for a second, because we then played bounced with each of us playing the bouncy or the bouncer. And it was funny. Steve, we must sit there for 3 hours afterwards, dissecting bounced as a tournament scenario, trying to come up with different things and arguing back and forth, whether it was the scenario that was unbalanced or was it the fact that if you played it as a tournament player, you were going to make it unbalanced. What was your final takeaway from all that?
Number one, it's not a competitive scenario, right? But
yeah, it's fun.
It's
it
super
can go
fun.
fast, and you can slip up and make a mistake and you lose in a heartbeat.
And you have to really read the scenario and the victory conditions
Oh yeah,
in Bounced to understand how to play it. What I do feel like in Bounced is it is very winnable from both sides if you stick to the actual letter of the law that says how you win. So I don't think the scenario is balanced, but I think the victory points kind of artificially, the way victory points are allocated and the actual victory conditions, I think actually kind of like artificially balance it, if
right.
that makes sense.
Well, I think what we walked away from is we said you had to play it for both players under the same conditions. So it had to be the same table. So you couldn't
Yeah.
like rotate tables and change up the theater
Change
cards.
clouds, change
Yeah,
theater
change clouds,
cards.
because as
Yeah.
soon as you tweaked one of those things, it made the employment of the victory conditions sustainable or not. And I think
Yeah,
that's what we really
for
found.
sure.
And I guess at the end of the day, it's a fun scenario, but it just, when you only have 3 games to play, you can't spread that event over a lot of them. And what we kind of laughed about was, we said, if each side is going to lose one of those games, so I lost a bounced and Mike lost a bounced, but if each one's going to lose, then whoever wins the first scenario is the guy that wins the tournament. So it's not, you have to kind of win a scenario you're probably not going to win.
Yeah, I really
As
enjoy playing it though. I think I
Yeah.
really do enjoy that scenario a lot. But yeah, I think we kind of put that to bed that that's going to show up in any
Yeah,
tournaments.
I did laugh because Ken assumed I'd put more thought into my list than I had. He's like, I really think you guys ought to do a live stream debrief for your list. I'm like, the list I made up in like 10 minutes and said, let's use aggressive as an ace trait because I like it, because it works. Yeah, so that list was not worthy of being debriefed. Mike's list was good, and it was a Wildcat Swarm list, so that was definitely something we hadn't seen in a while, and that was a lot of fun to fly against, because there's still a lot of things to Swarm list that you have to be careful with, even when you limit it down to 8 aircraft, because there's still just a lot of dice going down range. And he used Wildcats with rockets, and so that, just because he was using the heavier firepower version, the -3, I believe it is, that has firepower 2, agility 1. He had a lot better results than if he'd had the higher agility, lower firepower one. And I always get those dash backwards, whichever one's the -4 or the -3. But it was good because, when you double your firepower dice and then throw your pilot skill on top of it, you can be chucking a lot of dice in that initial attack. So I think that was a good lesson learned to play that against that kind of an opponent for the tournament, or for the tournament that wasn't a tournament.
And then, of course, the rocket cards sparked the big controversy on the ready room, right? Is that going to become the the meta for whatever?
Yeah,
And,
yeah. It was like, you guys are just jumping on the latest meta, whatever it is, and I'm like, bro, 2 people in the history of Blood Red Skies tournaments have used rocket cards. Originally, it was only Rhonda, and now it has been Mike. So 2 people have gone to the rocket card.
Yeah, but the thing with that is too, right? Like, yes, we understand that Corsairs were not carrying rockets and shooting down Me-109s at any point during World War II. Yes, we understand that did not happen.
And neither did Hurricanes face Wildcats.
Exactly, right? And every event we do, right, we always do the tournament, but we always say like, hey, we really like historical scenarios. We really like putting these, like, we always say that. So it's not like we're trying to bastardize and rewrite history. It's just the tournament. It's an isolated thing that happens in a vacuum. Don't get, all twisted about it.
Well, but one thing,
go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say, it was cool to see, it did spark a lot of conversation, but that goes to show you that Blood Red Skies does have a place in streaming. Like, a lot of people were super interested in it, and it brought up a lot of good conversations.
Yeah. So that was what was funny to us, is that I think we had more stream viewers than we have podcast listeners. But
you had 4 viewers?
Exactly. No, Steve's mom was not watching. So.
You guys always forget about my mom.
Exactly. She's our most faithful listener. But the fact is, it sparked a good debate, and it was good that people were seeing it, and there were some people that were not necessarily Blood Red Skies people that were seeing it. So I think it was good. I think one of the one of the problems you run into doing the streaming, as we saw there, is trying to provide commentary without everybody mic'd up, or commentary while things are going on. And long story short is what we executed there was not what we did at Adepticon. We didn't have the same crew. We didn't have, Brett and I as the talking heads, with Casey running around behind the scenes while Steve's managing the stream deck. So it was a lesson learned. We had fun. We talked our way through it. Steve, I guess you had to be the lone talking head doing all 3 events. So
Yeah, it was horrible. I hate doing that. That was brutal.
you're such a
I
wallflower.
do not like.
I would
being
like
the
to just sit
announcer.
here and play my games.
I don't want to be the announcer. That was brutal.
I like it. I'm an arrogant jerk, so I enjoy talking on the mic. Okay, so that was kind of the Blood Red Sky stuff. From then on, we just kind of fooled around with Blood Red Skies. We didn't really stream a whole lot for BRS and that. And that event, you redeemed yourself by working off the 90 pallets of plywood, and you played a game titled A Fistful of Seamen. Yes, It was a pirate game for all you dirty
I've played that game before.
That's right, you had. You played at Historicon, didn't you? Or no. That's the game that Casey plays. Never mind.
No, it was good. It was awesome. It was a huge pirate. It was basically a big role playing game. I don't know. There was really no winning or losing. It was more just about the social fun aspect of sailing these huge 28 millimeter scale battleships around, or pirate ships around, and it was it was fun. And it was just,
you guys look like you're having a good time.
It was a blast.
I had played it in 2017 at Adepticon, and those are the nicest guys, and they get so into it by dressing up in costume and stuff. Like, if you ever see it at a con, you have to play it.
Yeah, it was super cool. You do have to play it. I actually had a tiny little rowboat, a little dinghy the entire time. I didn't even get a real ship. And they actually conceded that for next time, if I want to play again, if I can paint up my own dinghy and they will write it into the game for me. So I'm like super excited. I have to get on.
Hey, man, I don't want to know about you painting your dinghy or whatever else goes on in Pennsylvania, man. You're bored in the summertime. Painting your dinghy is not what I need to know about.
Yeah. Custom dinghies by Steve.
Oh, well, that's good. Yeah, it's a huge social affair to watch people play that game. And I kind of wish I'd stuck around and played it, but I was pretty burnt out by that point. So I also knew if I stood in that room, I would keep drinking, and then my Sunday morning would be painful like your Monday morning was. So yeah, that wasn't in the cards for me. But it seemed that the role-playing element in that game was huge. I know, talking to a couple guys, some guys got their ship shot out from under them. They got thrown in jail. They had to make their case to the governor, and then explain how they're going to escape from prison and everything else. So it seemed like they had a really good time setting that up and running it. And they ran it all 3 days. So everybody was really happy with that.
Steve, what did you think of the con? Did you enjoy it? Because that was your first time, right?
Yeah, I really liked it. I had a great time, but I also, I don't know, I have a good time whenever I go to these things. I always tell people, like, these conventions, it could be a huge one like Adepticon. It could be 7 people like the first Siege of Vicksburg. It is what you make it, right?
Oh,
so
totally.
Seven people, you mean 5 vendors and 2 gamers?
No, I always have fun,
Sorry,
right?
Adam.
So it like, yeah, I loved it. It was great. I had fun hanging out afterwards. I had fun playing the games. I had fun doing Blood Red Sky stuff. Yeah, I mean, it was awesome. I think it's a good little con. I think it's kind of, if you haven't been to a lot of them, it's probably a good one to go to, because I feel like if you go to something like a StoreCon or Depticon, it's actually kind of easy to get overwhelmed by the scope of it, right?
Oh, right. Totally agree.
So I feel like Twisted Lords, if you've never been to a gaming convention before, there's enough going on that if you wanted to play games all day, you could find games to just sit down at. You're not getting to something like a StoreCon where you have to get on a waiting list to get in the game, and then, all that, right? I would highly recommend going to Twisted Lords. It was great.
Yeah, it's a good con. I really like it.
It's good. I think I'd be interested to see what the numbers were this year, because it just seemed really different than previous years, because Fistful of Seamen took up so much space in the center area. And so their game was dominating every night. There was a ton of people in the evening when that game would kick off. But the it was hard to then figure out where everybody else was for a lot of the other games. And there obviously were a couple of the different, I don't think they're called World at War or whatever. Those the massive Risk games, as I'll call them, Risk on steroids. Those games, they had 3 different ones they were playing. So there were a lot of different things going on.
Is it Global War?
Global War, yeah, I think that's right.
They had the
Like Global War 1985 and 1939
and 2025 is the new one coming out, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, Steve can't take this shit anymore.
A little prophetic.
Starts Global War 2025.
Yeah.
So it was a different dynamic, Casey, this year than I'm used to, and obviously Mike Garcia wasn't running his Circus Maximus game at the end of the evening because Fistful's full of Seaman kind of took all that spot. So it was a different setup. But it was still fun. There's still a lot of stuff going on and a lot of people roaming around talking, and got to catch up with people we hadn't seen, since Adepticon last year, that had missed this previous one and got to go hang out at dinner with them. And so it was a good scene. I think we validated once again that Fuzzy's Tacos is kind of the Lead Pursuit hangout. So if you can't find us sitting on the back stoop of the hotel eating Chick-fil-A, then we're probably at Fuzzy's Tacos having beer and draft margaritas. I'm really not sure how draft margaritas work, but they're tasty. So comes right out of a draft. Yeah, no clue.
Dude, I think that needs to be said about Twisted Lords. Tons of great places to eat right near the hotel.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
Oh man, yeah. I mean,
it's really not expensive either.
No.
I said that numerous times. So I mean, as far as conventions go, like at Adepticon, you got a couple choices right near the hotel, and then you got to kind of branch out to go to some other places. Not that those places aren't worth the drive, but yeah. I mean, it's a good con. It's a good location, good con. The hotel was cheap. The hotel was nice. Yeah, I mean, I had a blast.
The hot Nashville chicken about burned my face off. So it was good. Yeah, the setup. I think the only expensive thing was like hotel beers, but no one cares when it's 10 o'clock at night and you're playing another streaming game. So everybody's happy to pay hotel prices for beer at that point. But it's a really good setup. So I encourage, if you're in the middle part of the country or you don't mind flying out there to Oklahoma City, it's definitely a con worth going to. I would say sign up for stuff early because there were a few games I think that their host didn't show because they didn't get signups. So if you want to play something, just sign up for it, just so people know that you're interested. Because the Flames of War guy wasn't real sure how many people were going to show up, and a couple other guys had kind of expressed concern. But like us, we all showed up, ready to go, and had our 1v1 tournament. So it's still a chance to have fun. All right, so day 3, Sunday, we played another little spaceship game, or big spaceship game, I guess. Not really a little one. We played Snap Ship Tactics. Where had we seen that first?
Was that Adepticon? They were kind of showing it off at Adepticon?
Yeah, they were showing all the models and everything, and you were standing there pulling your hair out going, I thought of this game 2 years ago. I'm an idiot. Why didn't I publish it? So it was good to actually get to play the game that we had seen so much Steve nerd rage over. What were your thoughts there? Because I mean, I'll spoil it for everybody. I loved it, and there's always a but to it. But Steve, what were your thoughts?
Okay, I loved it. I love that it has a card building aspect to it, or a ship building aspect with cards, much like X-Wing, but it is way simplified. Like, I absolutely loved it. I loved how you manage the stress and the heat and those resources on your ship. I thought the game was super fun. I love how it's super customizable. I love that it's based off of the toys. If you don't know the toy Snap ships, look them up. It's just like a fun toy that's really customizable. I love that the movement template was one thing. I loved it. I think it's amazing, but there is one very large
butt.
A large butt, yeah. And I don't know if yours is the same, but I mean, I loved it. I'm buying it. I'm all in on it. I mean, I think it'd be an awesome tournament game. I think it'd be an awesome gateway game for kids to get into, or people that aren't into wargaming.
That's my biggest thing about it. I think it's a good gateway.
But the ships are so big because it's based on a toy that they get when they get close, it gets, I guess the term would be like claustrophobic kind of, where it gets hard to move them around. But it's freaking awesome, and I can't wait to have my own.
I think it's a great game, and I really enjoyed the mechanics of it. I enjoyed the models, and I enjoyed how easy it was to do everything. I enjoyed that they had bases that actually fit the stands, or stands that fit the bottom of the ships and mechanically locked into the bottom of the ships, not like a wobbly little triangle peg. But like you said, the only detractor that I had, and I can't believe that that's what I'm saying about this game. That's the only thing that I could find about it that frustrated me, was just when you got in close, the ships are big, and they're bigger than the bases, especially if you've customized them with wings and claws and all kinds of crazy stuff. And so it makes that in close movement a little difficult. Now, the nice thing is there are different height bases, so they've already sort of solved the problem for you, but there's only 2 heights. And so when you still get in close, you sometimes, as we found, the game kind of, like Blood Red Skies, drew you into a close fight. Now, part of that was the way the ships were built, because there were on each side ships that could use a ram attack or could do some kind of a ram attack kind of trick. So we both had large ships on our side that we wanted to get in close. And if you're like me and you suck so bad at the game, you just want to run everyone over. I just decided to bounce off of everybody with my ship. But that was the only detractor I had, which really surprised me. But Mitch Reed and I were talking about it the other night, as he was asking me. He couldn't believe, he's like, really, did you really like it? I'm like, yeah, man, it's great. It has, if you're an old BattleTech player like me, it's got a power and heat economy that kind of feels familiar. And you're like, I got to do stuff to get rid of heat, and then I only got so much power I can use. So those things were familiar. There's a card mechanic to it with how you flip damaged systems and when you choose to repair them and things like that. I really enjoyed it. And, sorry, go ahead, Casey.
I was just saying, I'm looking at their website, and the production value looks super high, like looking at the cards and everything.
And so talking with their guys, the cards are great. All the stuff they've put in there is awesome. And the models, even though they're toys, they prime and paint nicely. And they have a level of detail to them as well, that if you're going to get serious about this and you say, I don't want something that just looks like a toy on a stand out there, and you prime it and you come in and you paint it and you edge highlight and you use washes and inks and things, and you can put some pretty cool detail on there. And I guess the kind of guy I would challenge to paint this is Brad. Brad, down there in Australia, we're sending you some Snapship tactics.
Oh my God! All those lines, he would love it.
Exactly. His canopies would be these crazy zigzag, jagged lines that would look all cool. Brad, we love you. We're not making fun of your canopies. Your canopies look great, dude. But he would love painting something that big. So I was looking at it, kind of thinking, oh, this would be really cool. And I'm like, dude, this is why half of my 40K vehicles aren't painted, because they're so darn big. But yeah.
I didn't know it had AI and co-op modules with it too.
Yeah,
neat.
It does. It's it is.
I just need to go pre-order it. I haven't gotten off my ass. I have my card sitting right here somewhere.
I've got tons of ships.
Not out yet, right?
Well, it's not the pre-ordered. The other thing they do is you can purchase the card packs by themselves. You don't have to purchase the whole starter set. You can purchase
weird. A game does that. Crazy.
Super good. And it is, again, kind of like past the gold standard of what I consider to be a good game. It so simple. I mean, 20 minutes. I was like, oh, okay, I know how to play this game. Yeah. But that doesn't mean you're an expert at the game, right?
Oh, yeah.
So it's so simple to learn how to play that it almost seems like it can't. You're almost kind of like, this is so simple. Is this like a real game, or is this kind of like just like a fun goof around game, or is this like an actual?
Well, and that was my big concern the first time we sat down and got the demos. I'm like, okay, I see the trappings of a game here. Yeah. And I see some cool things, but is it going to be a game, or is it just going to be everything kind of moves across the board and you roll some dice and whatever?
So when we first sat down, I don't know if you're familiar with these, but I don't know if you know what, excuse me, if you know what Bakugans are. So there's these little toy, and they roll up in a ball.
Kids to know these things?
Yeah, you do. I'm sure people listening to us know what they are, but they're a little toy. It's kind of like a miniature transformer, and there's a game that you can play with these, in air quotes. It's a game, but basically it's just some a different way to play with the toy. It's not really a
Right.
game that has any strategy or anything like that. I was kind of thinking like that's what this was going to be. But when you started playing it, you were like, oh no, like there's a serious list building component of it, right?
Yeah.
And a serious, like you said, energy management portion of it, and a serious kind of spatial orientation component of it as you move around the board and the terrain comes into play. I mean, it is a legit game. I think like a 2v2, I think 2v2 is kind of the sweet spot for it.
Yep.
And
Yep.
I think it
'Cause
would
we
play
played a 3v3, and on a 4x4 table, that was a little confining.
And like you said, the table
yeah.
size isn't going to change it because everybody wants to go close anyway. So the table size just makes it take you longer to get close to each other.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think 2v2 in a tournament setting, it would play a lot like Blood Red Skies. You could do 3 rounds in 4 hours and have a really cool list building aspect. Yeah. Snap ship tactics. I would definitely recommend everybody go out there and check it out for sure.
Yeah, I think it's going to be fun. I would be interested to see, the more we get into it and the more you play, it's like any other game. You say, oh, wow, there's a lot of options. But then you see how some of those options are constrained in there because there's certain systems that have to stack on top of other systems. And so it was kind of interesting. One of the things I learned in the game was trying to figure out, like, there's a lot of different weapons. How do you know where you stick them on the actual airplane and all that? Well, there's actually a system when I put this wing card next to this weapons card. Now these are tied together. Therefore, I have to put the wings on, or the weapons on the wings, and it gives me different abilities. So there's a lot of tie-ins and things there that I think are great for more experienced or older gamers. Yet you can also play without a lot of that if you're just getting kids in the first time. It's super easy. It's got custom dice, so they're really easy to figure out when you get a critical hit because there's a little critical hit icon. And the mechanics of that are cool because there's always a little bit of I decide, you decide kind of mechanic depending on how you roll your critical hits. So it's a chance where you get to play a denial kind of individual, a blue falcon, and say, I'm going to destroy that system. And sometimes you get to pick it yourself. So I think it's a fun game. Looking forward to getting it, trying it. And I will definitely have to paint some models rather than just leave them as default paint jobs.
Man, if these ships were like Aeronautica Imperialis size or X-Wing size, it would be like the only space game I would ever
if they were half as big as they are now, or maybe a third as big, because I would be happy with them being bigger than AI ships because I want to be able to customize and put little greebly things on there. But yeah, it's a weird thing. But
Steve,
like
are we just going to gloss over that Doug said he was going to paint something?
Yeah, we're just going to forget about
For you. Would you like to see Fulcrum Leader anytime this year? Okay. Guess what? My painting is on a hiatus till Fulcrum Leader gets done. But I think the interesting part, like you talked about with the movement template, movement is so intuitive, and here's the biggest but about the movement, and I liked it. It bit me so many times. You cannot pre-measure your movement. Period. Dot. There is no for movement. Only shooting can you do pre-measurement. And by the way, guess whose eyeball Cal effing sucks at this game? Me. How many times I go, I'm going to sneak right in there, and I'd run into the other ship, or I'm going to get right within range, and I'm going to move my guy here, and then I look at the range, I'm like, shit, now I just checked the range, and I'm out. So there's a lot of fun to it, and there's a lot of tense moments where you're like, let me see if I can just drop my ship right next to that guy and not actually hit him. So I think it'll be fun. And then people like Casey who are, stay-at-home dads and have nothing better to do than assemble little ships with their daughters. They're really going to enjoy the toy aspect of the game because they'll never get to play it because they're never going to be at a freaking con.
I mean, you're not wrong.
Oh, Casey. One of these years we'll see you again, maybe next Adepticon. Every year we get to see Casey. Can we have more time with Casey? All right. So that was Snapship Tactics. Had a lot of fun. Get the videos up on YouTube so everyone can see what we did. And it was really good to talk through that game. I saw a lot of other stuff that I wanted to buy, and man, I don't know why. I think I was the kid with 25 cents in his pocket and stuck his hands in his pocket so he wouldn't spend his money. I did a good job. I came out of there without buying a lot. I bought like a board game as I'm looking over there, like a board game and a couple miniatures. I didn't buy, and I'm being that horrible podcast host, I can't remember the name of her company. I didn't buy any of those 3D printed cat RPG figures fail. And I can't think of the name of her company because I wanted to say something about it. She did some amazing sculpts, and those 3D printed cats were awesome. So if you want everything from ninja cats to barbarian cats to cat orcs, whatever fantasy thing floats your boat, she has a cat miniature that's very thematic for it. And I think from what they said is they're even going to start printing adventures for them that are obviously going to plug into Dungeons and Dragons and other fantasy role-playing games, but that are actually themed in the world. So you can play more cat-like miniatures. So yes, I'm a cat lover. Sorry. It was pretty funny. And I noticed you were checking it out, Steve. I mean, it was kind of like that same look you had looking at the chibis. So I'm like, Steve's going to redeem himself. He's going to redeem himself.
yeah,
He's not going to buy a chibi.
Chibis.
He's going to buy cat miniatures instead.
Why not? Everybody loves cats.
Everyone loves cats. Not really, but that's all right. I love cats. I'm one of those weird cat people. All right. So that was Twisted Lords in a nutshell. Obviously, everyone's heard us joke about it. We might have had a little bit too much fun Sunday night, staying up late, drinking. I got to my airplane fine. Steve, I think you eventually made it to your airplane.
Yeah, I made it.
Yeah, they poured you into the airplane. But we managed to get out of there and get back to our homes in relative sober capabilities. I think Steve's sworn off drinking for the next year until Adepticon. So.
Yeah, till Adepticon. I'm an official teetotaler till Adepticon, man.
Takes all the fun out of life. I guess maybe your lesson learned is don't sit down with a Ranger and a Marine and try to drink either one under the table.
Yeah, it's not like I was trying to do that. I was just drinking at the same rate, right? I wasn't like, it was, yeah.
Well, I guess I've thrown the gauntlet down because now I'm two for the three other members of the podcast. I guess it's Brett and I in the final round. So Adepticon with margaritas. Since I know I've already beat Casey down. And
yeah, I know. I clearly have a limit.
Yeah, well, that was my limit because I think I walked away from my last beer and you drank it. So I knew I was at my limit. I'm like, I'm done. Like, this is not going to go well if I have one more beer. So anyway, yeah, we had a good time. And thanks again to John Russell, his team, Tony, Ogre, Big Will, all those dudes for rolling out the red carpet for us, taking care of us. Vicky, who really is the hostess with the mostess there, helping out everybody at TLC. They did a great job. And once again, thanks to Sherwood Wargames, to Phil and Tina for taking care of us. And thank you, Tina, for bringing me caffeine when I needed it in the morning, even if it was tea instead of coffee. I'll survive. But yeah, they were taking good care of us there. So, all right. Moving on from that, you rolled into yet another game the next weekend. You did decide to do Historicon. Tell us a little bit about what terrible idea that was.
Well, it was a terrible idea because I was still hungover from Twisted Lords. But 5 days
I didn't
later,
tell you to go to Historicon and drink. You know?
But no, it was good. I feel like it was a typical Historicon, much the same as last year. Felt like, and I only went up for Friday, so I didn't stay for a long time, but did see the Aerodrome guys, so that was cool. I popped into their room just to say what's up with them. They were doing a World War II Aerodrome game that I popped into. That was pretty cool.
I think I'm most upset about missing that, not going to NashCon. So I'm not going to play Aerodrome.
I know,
so
right?
Maybe I'll have to play that on Sunday. I have to find an excuse to get up there early.
But they're always awesome to see. These, your standard 14 different versions of Gettysburg that you have at every Historicon. Saw some of those guys playing. But
so were they playing it 1-to-1, or were they actually taking it longer than the entire battle?
It was double time scale or something, half time scale. I don't know.
Half time scale.
It's insane.
It's going to take 6 days to do the Battle of Gettysburg.
3 days Gettysburg. Yeah, and then the guy
there's 2 hours of Gettysburg that mattered. Don Ayers, I don't care what you say. There's like 2 hours the whole freaking 3 days that mattered, and we're not going to make it play out for 24 hours. So
and then the guy actually did a 9-hour reenactment of the Gettysburg Address. It was fat. It was freaking good.
He read it at sloth speed, one word every three seconds. Yeah,
and this is I feel like this is kind of a lesson that is kind of a PSA to the ready room. I was walking through one of the halls, and there was a table. It was like a 4x6 table, 20 to 25 Blood Red Skies airplanes on it, about half a dozen people sitting around it. And I was like, oh man, you guys are playing Blood Red Skies. That's awesome. Have my Lead Pursuit shirt on. They're like, yeah, we love this game. It's great. We really like it. I was like, oh, I guess you guys listen to Lead Pursuit. What's Lead Pursuit? I was like, oh yeah, whatever. So then I was like, I see they have Airstrike out. They're just kind of playing. And they're asking some questions. I was like, oh, you guys should really hop on the Blood Red Skies Ready Room on Facebook. It's a whole community. They got add-on cards, a master list. We're not on Facebook. So, I mean, they were playing with straight up whatever was printed, no FAQ, no errata, no.
They're playing straight up 2018 printed card of a
vanilla,
mosquito.
Yeah, vanilla Blood Red Skies. And man,
Who are these people?
It just it really made me think, like, there's probably a lot more people out there playing this game that nobody even knows about. They're playing it with one or two people, or they're playing in their little group, and they're kind of isolated in their own little bubble. So just something to keep in mind out there with Blood Red Skies,
Yeah, I agree with you. And we've talked about it a lot, that I think there are more people that play Blood Red Skies in their local gaming groups than we realize. And we assume that, well, they're going to play it when they go to a con. And no, that's their time to go play a lot of other stuff. Or, maybe once a year they'll get together at one of the local events and play Blood Red Skies a little bit. And they'll do all the other cool games they haven't seen, or people's customized games. So does it bother me? Not really. Is it funny? Yes, it's always funny when instead of the usual, oh, Lead Pursuit, we listen to you guys. You guys are awesome. It's like, Lead Pursuit, who the hell are you? So it's always good to have that kick to our
humbling
ego.
experience.
Yeah, humbling experience.
I did have to chuckle a little bit because they had some rules questions, and I walked away from the table. They had some pretty basic rules questions, but I was like, oh yeah, we play it all the time. Like, no problem. I'll help you with the rules, answer these questions. I was feeling really good, right? So walked away from the table, and about 2 or 3 minutes later, this guy comes over, taps me on the shoulder. He's like, hey man, could you maybe answer some questions with us about this? We just really don't understand multi-engine rules. And I was like, don't worry. I was like, just play them however you want. Nobody really understands. It's all good.
Bro, we run the only Blood Red Skies podcast. We don't know how multi-engine works.
I was like, I honestly am very confused about multi-engine rules. Just play them however you want.
Oh yeah, sadly that's more true than I like to admit.
Oh, it is.
We even I can't remember what the latest discussion was, but there was a discussion here where I had to sit back and go, I'm so confused. Oh, it was this whole discussion of multi-engine tailing.
Now you can tail them.
I keep wondering, where have you guys? How have you guys been sitting under a rock? Because I had a moment where I'm like, am I getting this wrong? The way Brett's asking me this question, my fellow member of the Lead Pursuit podcast, I'm like, man, I got to be wrong. And I open up the book. I'm like, no, I'm not wrong. I'm correct.
Well, can you outmaneuver them now too?
No, you cannot.
Okay.
You still cannot.
But
still
tailing,
cannot be outmaneuvered. But because tailing, the prohibition against tailing was tied in the old Battle Britain box set in Scenario 4. So in Escort Duty, it said multi-engine aircraft cannot be tailed. And that was the only scenario that used multi-engine aircraft that weren't agile. So that was kind of where that concept came from. And I know when Brett and I first played B-29s, we played two different ways. We played one game where you could tail and one game where you couldn't tail. Once again, let's go back to multi-engine rules. They're confusing enough. So either way had a tactical decision. If you could tail, then you didn't want to get back there because their tail guns would shoot at you. But if you couldn't tail, then it took you a while to knock them down. But yeah, whatever. Pick away, play it like everything else.
The only other thing is I'm going to throw this out there as a PSA to anybody who wants to run a game at a convention.
Don't use medicine bottle tops as your blast tokens.
Okay, find something else besides. Actually, Blue Falcon Hobbies now is carrying blast templates modeled off of prescription CVS bottle tops. So we're gonna use.
I cannot believe that.
We're gonna use. And then we're gonna use like the big 2-inch Tylenol bottle topper, like the big bottle of Tylenol. That's going to be for like a bigger mortar or something. But yeah, we're going to tile that right in there.
Yeah, no, don't use those. No.
Maybe we'll even we'll find out a way that you can glue your Napoleonic soldiers onto your weekly pill calendar thing. You know, it has that little rectangular thing with Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
That's what I
Have
thought
your
you were
rank
going to
and
say.
You know, your rank
That's
and
gonna say how
file.
you can reuse your catheters as
Oh, God.
basis for your for your Napoleonic epic scale.
Oh yeah, but that was definitely a funny thing. But sat down to a game that was a super interesting topic. Really, really liked it. I'm not gonna call out the game because the guy was super enthusiastic about it, and it was a super neat topic. But it was a homebrew rule set, and it was not. I wouldn't even say it's horrible because it wasn't horrible. It just was not fun. And the
Right.
one thing I
Right.
would say to everybody is if you want to put on an event at a big convention, you could write a scenario about anything. So if you want to do some obscure conflict or you want to do some very one-off battle, whatever, find a rule set that is written for the scale that you want to play and the time period you want to play, and write a really good scenario. And if you want to throw in one little kind of caveat rule, scenario rule or whatever, go for it. But there is a distinct difference between games that are play tested and worked over and published than a homebrew rule set. And it's very, very, very rare that you sit down at a game that's a totally homebrew rule and it's fun. So just I would throw that out there. I would recommend people focus more on writing a scenario that's really good and tight and cleaned up.
Well, I think that's exactly the thing that Dan Dione has said a number of times, is that the great thing with Blood Red Skies is it's a play-tested set of rules, and it's fairly tight and consistent, except for maybe multi-engines, whatever. But the key is the scenario builder toolkit. All the other things you throw in there, how you add that special rule or whatever without breaking the good construct of the game, and you have something that adds a little bit of flavor, but still is based on the game that plays well, that plays fast, that you don't spend 57 minutes just giving the background to before you start the game. So I think there's something there. And as much as I make fun of Warlord and their epic scale Napoleonics and their epic scale American Civil War, part of the beauty of it is it gives you a starter kit that when you want to do that homebrew game for the Battle of Murfreesboro or whatever, that there's not something dedicated for, you really can build in there, and you can make your own special rules. You can house rule stuff. You can simplify things if you want to. No one cares. They're not going to show up and steal your pike and shot rule set. Not going to steal your, black powder rule set. But it gives you some things. It gives you a known starting point. So I think that's the important part.
Yeah, and it just is a difference, right? Like it's something to think about, and I certainly don't want to sound like I'm like discouraging creativity, or like something like that. Like certainly, I think there's a lot of great, and this whole battle was something I had never heard of, and this guy was like a serious authority on the battle, and it was super interesting, and it really made me want to like look up more about this battle and everything. But it just wasn't a fun war game, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
So something to just think about.
I think that's kind of one of the problems of Historicon, and I haven't got out there. Casey, maybe you've already seen some of the debriefs. If Little Wars TV or anyone has already thrown out a debrief of this Historicon, have you seen anything that kind of talked about what the balance of the games or anything was?
I know Little Wars put one out, but I haven't got a chance to watch it yet.
Okay, I haven't either. So I'd be curious to see what everyone's take on it is. And it seems HMGS events emphasize the homebrew rules, the homebrew over the commercialized games,
mainstream stuff.
Yeah, mainstream, which is cool. And I'm cool with people making their own rules, but I think you got to understand, if you're going there to demo your rules about a specific time period or something, that's one thing. It's another if you want to drag people into a game and have a good time and have them have a good time. It's not about you, it's about them. They're the customer here. So yeah, make it easy. Plus, especially because if your rules don't resemble anything else, it's not like you say, hey, this is bolt action, but without dice that for activation. We have activation chits, or something like that. So you don't have a frame of reference to move people on to that game. So.
And the killer with it is too, right? There is a finite amount of things you could sign up for. right? Because
Right.
there's a finite amount of time, right? So to kind of, I think in the game description too, just be clear about it, right? So like if this is the first time you've ever played this and you've run this scenario once every other year when you set up at a StoreCon, like just be clear about it. Because I'm sure there's a lot of people that'd be like, oh man, this guy has a homebrew rule set. I'd like to sit down and try it out and maybe bounce some ideas off them, right? So but just be clear about what you're offering if you're doing that. And I don't know, I always try to keep in mind, just make sure you're giving a fun experience. And it was a fun experience. It was just not a fun game.
Just the game itself.
Yeah.
The game was not enjoyable. The social experience was fine, but the game itself, trust me, I've played a few of those at conventions. And it was funny because, Pat was there. Pat Doyle and his son Matt were both there. They're playing, I guess, in the Flames of War tournament. But they were talking about some of the other, modified rule systems, like they've started playing Full Thrust for sci-fi ship games. And which rule set are you playing? You playing the old rules? You playing the new community-derived rules? So I think there's always a little bit of truth in, in gamesmanship, that you say, here's the rule set I'm using, here's what it's based on, I've modified it, or I'm playing just straight out of the rule book, or hey, this is my own homebrew system, so people know what they're getting in for. But it's always fun. I mean, that's how we found a lot of the games that we like, is we just roll in and see what people are playing and sit down and go, dude, show me this airplane game, and go figure it out. So, which I got to say, I'm realizing there's more airplane games out there than most people realize, even us that do an aerial wargaming podcast, because literally someone will mention it, that they're playing a game. I'm like, I've never heard of that. Where's that rule system? I'll go look up and go, oh, that one actually exists, So kind of like Missile Threat, which we were supposed to be talking about this week, but we'll talk about
next week.
Next week soon. Soon. Coming soon to a
We're
podcast
building
near
the
you.
suspense.
Yeah. Suspense. We'll get to Missile Threat one of these days.
Yeah, we'll talk about the expansion of Full Thrust. What's it called? One Pump or?
Oh, it's never a dull day with you, Steve.
Without alcohol, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah. This is teetotaler Steve. Can you imagine Steve with a few margaritas in him? Ladies and gentlemen, do not bring the kids around. Hide your kids, hide your wives. Oh, yeah. All right. Well, so Historicon. Anything else you want to say about the Gathering of the Old Grogs? I mean, Historicon. I mean, you got to talk to Mitch Reed. Got to
saw Mitch.
Chat with him.
Always good to see Mitch. Yeah, it was fun.
He ran into you, so it was good.
Fun. Yeah, it was good. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I got the debrief from Mitch about all the craziness going on, and so I think he was happy to be there and get to play some games and take a break from sitting in a bunker somewhere playing war games about real war. So it's good for him to get out and do a little fun stuff. Well, Casey, what are we going to ask you about? What have you done for the good of the podcast lately, besides trying to get more airplanes?
Printing planes, that's it. I haven't even played anything. And, with my Hobby Garage AC going out, all I've been doing is going through my Helion collection, reading all those books, and just I haven't done anything. It's just waiting for the next con to come up. But it's also like 106 here every day. It's just soul-sucking.
Yeah, which is why, I mentioned before the start of the podcast, thinking about coming out there in November. I'm like, oh joy, it'll only be 97 degrees if I come out in November. Yeah,
exactly.
No, I think I'm avoiding Texas.
No, and I mean, I know we're going to bring this up too, but a lot of my group's getting excited about Epic coming around the corner. And, that's something I think we'll definitely get into in the aerial component of it. And it's
so
a lot to talk about.
That's going to be an interesting one because I really want to see where it's going to go. I'm super excited about Epic, but then again, I'm an old school Epic player. And I'm looking really forward to getting back into it. I will be curious how airplanes play in. We've seen a lot of setups where you see Thunderhawks that look like they're about to land, or there's other stuff flying in. So I'm curious what it's going to do on the board, how it's going to interact. I remember how it used to be, at least in Titan Legions, and then on into the first Epic scale where Thunderhawks could come into land. So we'll see how it all plays.
I like those new bases that they showed.
People are bitching and complaining about the bases. I'm like, whatever, man. Like everything else with Nerd Rage, someone's going to find a reason to detract. And I'm like, well, if I don't have to track altitude and airspeed, I at least better have a base I can put some cool scenic stuff on, which, oh, by the way, let's talk about the other 700-pound gorilla. Hey, GW, I thought I had enough of your stupid little Epic scale buildings, but now you have to release a set of ruined buildings. Freaking jerks.
You know,
Yeah.
those tiles too are awesome. I just wish they were a little bit more like you had some curves because they're all straight lines and stuff.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I'm sure someone will put out an STL for
The
them.
Imperium does not make curved roads. All their roads are on a grid. Did you
Imperium
not
straight
read
and
any?
narrow.
Yeah. Did you not read any of the lore? So I actually the boards to me are like meh. I don't know why I'm not as excited about those as I am about the ruined buildings. And I guess just when I look at it, I think of playing Aeronautica, and so I think of all the cool ruined stuff I can do with that for the terrain. Because going back to Dave Pauls and all the guys who were at Adepticon running the Heresy Aeronautica game, those guys had some seriously great buildings put together. So thanks again to those guys for loaning it to us. Gave me some more ideas for next year. And for me now, I'm in a recurring Monday night. I guess we're not really an Aeronautica league. You'd have to have like more than 8 people to be a league or something. But we're a recurring group of Aeronautica gamers, so it's fun. I had a chance to play this last Monday. Totally got tabled in the first game. It was pretty funny. I sucked horribly, and then came back and played 1v2 against 2 other players, and that was a fun game. So I'm enjoying playing against a different group of guys. And now that we have Chris here in the U.S., hopefully I'll be on a recurring basis on Monday nights, face punching him every time we play Aeronautica and beating the crap out of him. So we'll see, but it's good to have a recurring game night. Messes with our podcast schedule, but we'll figure that out. But the team over at High Ground Hobbies, man, they continue to amaze me with their setup out there. I just hate the fact that it's 45 minutes from my house, so I have to drive all the way across town to go play. But they've got a great gaming setup and pretty decent food too. So, all right, what else do we want to talk about this week for summer events? Anything else that's on the list?
I don't think anything else. Summer. What's going to be the next event, next con we're all at? Or we're going to run something? What's the plan?
So that's the weird thing. Mike Lewis, once again, our freaking hero. I owe him a lot of beer. He's going to run at NashCon a furball on Friday night and a tournament on Saturday. So look forward to seeing that info. I'm going to put out some more info on our Gathering of Eagles group in the Blood and Skies Ready Room so people know that that's going down. But there will be a tournament and there will be a furball. So plenty of Blood Red Skies at NashCon without us. I will probably show up maybe part of Saturday and Sunday. I don't know. Stupid work trips. So we won't make that. The next event I will attend is Siege of Vicksburg. Question is still whether Steve will fly down because he loves the airport down there so much. That whether we'll fly in. That's going to be a great setup. Adam Chance has got a good venue this time, right there on the lake, because we can all relax, pointing our pinky, drinking our mint juleps, and playing our games in the Siege of Vicksburg, not in Vicksburg. So that will be good. If you haven't gone out to the website to look, all the information is there for the Siege of Vicksburg convention in October. And then after that, I don't have anything on the schedule. Casey, I know Millennium Con's canceled until next year.
Yeah, nothing really here in Texas till I guess really what I'm looking forward to is Fall In, I guess,
Yeah.
November.
Yep. So that's the 4th, right? We said the weekend of the 4th.
Yeah, I think so.
I guess that's our next stake in the ground, we're kind of saying. So, Steve, you're going to go, obviously. It's right around the corner from you. And we're talking about coming up and at least making a lead pursuit showing of it and hanging out and having a good time. So that Fall In might be the next big event. I guess we better start doing our research for that. And I better leave time in my schedule so I can go do that. Not be on a plane to Timbuktu or other parts of the world. So, all right. Well, cool. As always, please give us your feedback. We realize this was kind of just a quick recap of everything that was going on, talking about both the conventions we've gone to, the things we're looking forward to. We are going to do a detailed episode to talk about missile threat one of these days. I've only had the rules for 2 years. We'll talk about that hopefully next episode. We're also going to talk about epic scale. I know there's a lot of 40K haters out there, but when that rolls out, we're going to talk about the little plastic airplanes in the epic scale 40K game and how that all impacts. And because I'm playing Aeronautica every Monday night, we'll probably talk about that as well. So please go out there, like the podcast, subscribe to the podcast, leave us some comments, tell us the things we do right, things we do wrong, ask us what events we're going to, and we'll tell you we have no freaking clue. But that's kind of where we are in the way that our personal schedules are. Guys, anything that you want to leave as a wrap up?
If you're looking for HE 111s for your Blood Red Skies game, Doug is about to have a hefty stock of them.
so I'll make this point, and John Russell, I love you like a brother. Warlords HE 111s, I want to punt them down the flight line. So if you want HE 111s where the wings actually are molded into the body and not a two-part thing, Lead Pursuit podcast, leadpursuit.net, and then click on store, and you can buy HE 111s to your heart's content. But that's how it is with 3D modeling and 3D printing, and I think you'll see a number of people in the years to come shifting to some of that. But anyway,
yeah, no, just try to stay cool, and we're coming upon fall, which is always the good hobby gaming season. I'm getting excited for it.
Yeah, you're excited. The temperature will be below 100 degrees.
When I say fall, we still have 3 more months of summer left in Texas, but I'm being positive.
I've got a month and a half of summer here, so maybe it'll drop by September. Well, awesome. Well, thanks, guys. Appreciate your time. And everybody out there, remember that there's a real reason the Lead Pursuit podcast is here. We're the Lead Pursuit podcast, welcoming our new overlords, Hornby, with open arms.
We were sitting there listening to him tell the tale of this war. It was 57 minutes until we began deployment.
I think I would have got up and left.
Then,
yeah, not interested.
By the time deployment was over, we were an hour and 35 minutes into the session, and we had just finished deployment. It was insane. It was insane. But this is like number one reason you don't make a homebrew game.
Yeah.
Was it just like a lot of work up and talking for nothing?
Oh yeah, because I feel like if he would have done
describe my sex life with my wife.